Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Amare Amodia, and I am here to present my final project of literary criticism. Now, we've been given a bunch of literary works, but the literary works that I've chosen is Shooting an Elephant by George Orwell, and I believe the interesting take that I have taken from the work itself is the post-colonialism, or how it affected the main character. Okay, right, now let's get into the outline first. Here is the outline for the material. We have literary criticism, Orientalism, post-colonialism, Shooting an Elephant, a brief synopsis of it, and then the issues and quotations, and of course, finally, conclusions. Right, so literary criticism. I believe literary criticism is the practice of interpreting, analyzing, and evaluating literary works to find a deeper meaning behind it. There are other ways to portray literary criticism, but I believe these three words have summed up what literary criticism is. And of course we have Orientalism. Orientalism that was brought by Edward Said from his book 2, Orientalism. This is one of the quotes that I've taken, which is, Orientalism is a Western style for dominating, restructuring, and having authority over the Orient. How do they dominate? Well, basically by by changing or alternating how the Western sees the Eastern part of the world as something, or the Orient part as something that is weak, exotic, and also irrational. And those three words justifies the reasons for colonizing said country. Okay, and then we have, talking about colonizing, not colonizing by itself is an act of, taking over, alternating, dominating. What happened after that is the post-colonialism. It shows and also analyzes the effects of colonial power and control over a nation. It focuses on the identity and cultural oppression, because if a nation is within or under a colonization, I suppose their culture could be seen as second-handed, while the colonized or the colonizer's culture as the main culture that needs to be portrayed. And then of course it shows the lasting impact of how the empire on both the colonizer and the colonized. Okay, and this is Shooting an Elephant. These are the 3 points that I could give. Now, if you are interested in reading the rest, I advise you to do so, because it is very interesting and also very insightful. There are lots of rich vocabularies that we could have been taken in there. And yeah, so basically Orwell is a British officer in the colonial Burma. He is faced with the pressure to shoot an elephant against his will. And of course, finally, that action of shooting represents the cruelty and absurdity of how an imperial rule could be. This by itself perhaps would not make any sense if I do not explain it further. So Orwell receives the news or a rumor, or heard a rumor that there is one elephant that is running amok amongst the shops, the houses, and basically everywhere within the city of Burma. But once he found said elephant, the elephant is just chilling. It had been chased off, and it's not really wrecking anything. But faced with the pressure of the natives there, seeing the gun on his hands, Orwell shot the elephant to not just represent the power of the British Empire, but for his public image, to show himself as the strong one, and the oppressed there, the natives, should cower before him. Okay, so that is Shooting an Elephant. Technically, Orwell by himself does not view it as him to be feared, but I'm sure you will understand once you've read the literary works. Okay, so this is the issue that I have found within Shooting an Elephant by George Orwell, is that Orwell hates colonialism, but he also needs to uphold his authority. So it is an internal struggle that he has. He doesn't like colonialism. It is an act of evil. But he also needs to uphold his authority because that is a part of his job. He needs to do it. Now, another internal struggle of the main character Orwell is that he feels trapped between conscience and also public expectation. His conscience of doing the good thing, doing the better thing, of letting the elephants go, but the public expectations of him shooting an elephant and putting a rest onto the case and problems. And of course, finally, it is to shoot the elephant to avoid looking weak, because if you were to be looked down as weak, that means the British Empire is also weak. Okay, and then of course these are the quotations that I've taken from the story. I was stuck between my hatred of the empire and my rage against the evil-spirited. It shows the first issue. Orwell hates colonialism, but he also needs to uphold his authority. And then here was I, the white man with a gun, with his gun, only an absurd puppet pushed to. He feels himself as a puppet, and basically he feels trapped between his conscience and public expectations to serve as the British Empire officer. Then of course the last one is, when the white man turns tyrant, it is his own freedom that he destroys. Now, this might not make any sense, but I relate these quotations to this issue. He needs to shoot the elephant to avoid looking weak, and that's why the white man, him, Orwell, turns into the tyrant, because the elephant does not need to die. It doesn't need to die, but because of that pressure, because of said expectation, he destroyed himself. He destroyed his way of freedom, the elephant symbolizing his own freedom. And then finally we came into the conclusion. The conclusion of which Orwell's story reveals the empire's psychological damage. Post-colonial theory, on the other hand, and Orientalism help us understand said matter. And then colonialism harms both oppressed and the oppressor, but it also depends on the context. And then finally, it is still relevant to examine power and identity in modern days. So, yes, that will be all for my presentation. Thank you so much for listening up till this point. My name is Amare of Amodia. If there are any mistakes within my presentations, or if you want to give me a feedback, please comment down below, and that will be all. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.